We're on.
Hey, late night from Willowdale. We did a video, but it was a little too long, so we're just remaking it. Because we want to keep these things under 10 minutes. So, the big story of the week, well, there's been so many stories. Where do you begin? And I don't, on these videos, I don't want to always deal with the craziness of the Trump administration. But there's so much to talk about. But what Trump did this week with the Iran deal, walking away from the Iran deal, that's a bigger story than just Trump. And I say that because Trump appealed to his base, as Emmanuel Macron of France said, it's all domestic politics. That's why Trump walked away. Because Trump, we all know it, right? The intelligence communities of the U.S., Europe, Israel, they've all said this was a good deal, and Iran was complying to the deal. Iran was complying with the tenets of the agreement. The only country that wasn't complying with it was the United States. The only country that was not compliant was the United States. So it was totally irrational for Trump to walk away, because it goes against all the facts. Remember with that old FBI series? Just the facts, man. Just the facts. And of course, with the Trump administration, facts don't matter. So this goes beyond Trump. This goes to the fact there is an irrational... The hatred of Iran in parts of the United States is intense, and it's not rational. It's irrational. Trump's base hates Iran. And there are segments in the American media who hate Iran. It's just irrational, and because there's no basis in fact. So, yes, Trump's ignorant base, the basket of deplorables, as Hillary would call them, and I agree with her on that, hate Iran. They couldn't even place Iran on the map of the world. They're so stupid. They don't know the deal. They haven't read it. They don't understand it. They don't realize that Iran has complied, and if they did, they just don't believe it. And then there's parts of Trump's base too, the right-wing Jewish parts of the Jewish community are very right-wing, and obviously hate Iran for all sorts of reasons. And then there's the pro-Israel supporters who hate Iran, and there's the members of the U.S. Congress, a good chunk of them who hate Iran, have always hated Iran. And it's just a bizarre sort of consortium of people who hate Iran. But it's not based in fact, because why would you hate Iran? What if Iran... it goes back to the Islamic Revolution of 78, 79, the American hostage crisis. But other than that, why do you hate Iran? What has Iran done to you other than they burned a few American flags and America's the great Satan? The United States supported a vicious, brutal dictator in the Shah. They overthrew a democratically elected government in 1953, the Mossadegh government. They overthrew it. The CIA overthrew it because it was threatening American interests in Iran, oil interests. Iranians have a lot of reason to hate the United States. Yet they complied to this deal. They complied, and they wanted better relations with the United States. But segments of the American population and the media will never allow... won't give Iran a break. Iran is a relatively democratic country. Yes, they're not a beacon of human rights. They imprison people for the dumbest reasons. But women have rights in Iran. They tolerate religious minorities. And they have relatively democratic elections. And yet there's this hatred towards Iran. America's biggest ally in the Middle East other than Israel is Saudi Arabia. A country that has no elections. A country that is as meddlesome as Iran, even more so. Countries responsible for a good chunk of the carnage in Yemen, which has claimed 13,000 lives. Countries that still beheads people. Well, Iran does that occasionally too. I'm not going to give them a pass on that. But Saudi Arabia is one of the worst players in the Middle East. They funded the Taliban. They funded Al-Qaeda. They sent planes into the World Trade Center. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a pretty despicable place, yet they get a pass. But Iran is hated, and they say, oh, it's the biggest sponsor of world terrorism. Well, that's a joke. I think one of the biggest sponsors of terrorism in the world, other than the United States, is Saudi Arabia. And I could go on and on and on. The hypocrisy is, but there's an irrational hatred of Iran in the United States that allows Trump to get away with what he did the other day. And it's not rational. It's not based on fact. So let's move on. There's a shadow war going on in the Middle East right now between Iran and Syria. I think Israel feels emboldened because Trump walked away from the Iran deal. Israel can basically do whatever the heck it wants. No one's going to complain. But this is very dangerous. And this could be really nasty stuff. The only country I think could really put a stop to this is the Russians. And Putin, who has very good relations with the Israelis, very good relations with the Iranians, and very good relations with the Saudis, and, of course, with Bashar al-Assad in Syria, he could actually step in and put an end to this, as he should. If he wants to do something positive in the world, he should do that. The great game is going on in the Middle East. The great game of Central Asia that happened in the 19th century is going on in the Middle East. Again, the European powers, the Americans, the Russians, and the Turks, former Ottoman Empire, they're all playing a game. Everyone wants a chunk of Syria, and we'll see where it all goes. But this thing with Israel and Iran could escalate, and it shouldn't. And Russia is the one country that could actually put an end to it, so they should. Let me move on. The Middle East is a bit of a, excuse my wording, is a bit of a clusterfuck. So it's very difficult. And since there's no leadership on the American part to do anything about it, we're going to see where it all falls. And so, like I said, I think the Russians should, Putin should do something positive on the world stage because Trump is incapable. The North Korea thing is a bit of a joke. It's all theater. How can Kim Jong-un trust Trump after he... How can Kim Jong-un trust Trump after he tore up the Iran agreement? Everyone's saying, "Oh, is Kim Jong-un going to play Trump?" I kind of hope he does, but the only people, the worst culprits are the Americans. I wouldn't trust the Americans on anything. I'll trust the North Koreans way over I'll trust the Americans, particularly after what they did with the Iran deal. But a lot has been spoken and written about that. This is all theater, what's going to go on in Singapore, I guess a month from now. It'll benefit domestic audiences in North Korea and the United States, but it's just theater. If anything positive comes out of it, yeah, I'll give credit where credit's due. And I think Kim Jong-un is sincere in the fact that he wants a better situation. I don't know if it's going to be a denuclearized Korea, but I think, I watch episodes of MASH every day, so... Yeah, that war has got to end. That, it ended in 1953 in a truce. It's got to officially end. So if Trump can get that, all credit to him. So let's move on to quickly John McCain. The Trump administration been critical of this woman said some insensitive remarks about John McCain saying, "Oh, he's going to die anyways." This is in relation to his vote on the CIA nominee. The fact that everyone is so shocked and appalled. Okay, I hate cheap sentimentality. Donald Trump hates John McCain. He could care less whether he doesn't care less whether he could care less whether he dies. And he's honest about that. He doesn't want to respond to it. And John McCain, in my opinion, is a fraud. I know he's battling, and to his friends and supporters, it's a tough situation. He's battling brain cancer or whatever. But John McCain is a fraud. His sort of elevated status in American political life is bizarre. I never thought he was that intelligent. Ever since I've known him on the public stage, since he was a senator, he's a warmonger. He loves wars. He loves U.S. interventions. When the Reagan administration, which I call the lost war, no one ever talks about, was waging a war of terror in Latin America and Central America. They probably killed between the early 80s and mid 80s, 250,000 people. John McCain was a big supporter of killing people in Latin America, all supposed communists, right? In Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. big supporter of the reign of terror that the Reagan administration waged on Central America. He was a big supporter. He loved the Iraq War, all the Iraq interventions, the Kuwait, the Bush invasion of 2003. He loved it, no problems with it. He loved the intervention in Libya. There's not a war that John McCain did not want the U.S. to intervene in. He loves intervening in wars, and he's a warmonger. And I don't understand why people think he's so great. He was involved in the Keating Five, saving and loans thing in Arizona, which hurt a lot of poor people. The guy's a creep, and I don't understand why people love him so much. And his death, who cares?
Probably because he's dying.
Yeah,
people love
dying,
people that are
right?
dying,
Cheap
right?
Sentimentality.
Right.
He's dying, so we all have to be nice. The guy was a creep. He doesn't deserve all the accolades he's getting in the last, probably.
Trump should go to his funeral.
Year of his life. At least Trump is being honest by saying, I don't care. And I admire that. John McCain is a creep. And I don't think he deserves all the accolades he's getting. His record doesn't deserve it, frankly. I'll leave it at that. Let's go quickly to the provincial campaign here in Ontario. I don't know where it's going. It's just started. But Kathleen, you have three parties, and one of them doesn't really want to participate. The Conservatives just have Trumpian, sort of cheap, stupid proposals that appeal to stupid people. Let's face it. Like, Doug Ford doesn't give a damn about anybody. I mean, he's and if people appeal to his sort of cheap his stupidity, and I'm going to cut taxes for them, the whole dealie, and his sort of right wing, sort of Trumpian rhetoric, and if that appeals to people, that that's sad, because Ontarians went from electing a gay woman to be their premier, an intelligent woman, and all of a sudden they're going to swing back and vote for a guy like Trump Ford. Why are people so weird that way? Like, it's true. This does mirror the American election. You went from voting for a guy like Obama, giving up on someone like Hillary Clinton, who was an intellectual, and voting for Trump for all the reasons. And if this could happen in Ontario, it doesn't. Doug Ford's not going to do anything for low-income people or poor people, or he doesn't give a. Doug Ford is all about Doug Ford and appealing. Again, this phenomenon that happened in the United States could happen here. Although Doug Ford doesn't have the same racist or anti-immigrant stuff that Trump has, this phenomenon could actually happen in Ontario, and that's worth looking at if it does actually happen. I do see Kathleen Wynne as our Hillary Clinton. The difference is Kathleen Wynne did win a majority government. The first female premier in Ontario, and the first, gay premier in Canada. Like, that was a major achievement. So she did have something over Hillary. She won. But the hatred of Kathleen Wynne is interesting. It reminds me of the hatred towards Hillary Clinton. They always talk about the Me Too movement and all that, but there's a lot of people in the Me Too movement that won't vote for Kathleen Wynne because she's not progressive enough or she's not perfect enough. Just like a lot of people in the Me Too movement didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because she wasn't perfect enough. That's a mistake. Andrea Horwath, we'll see where she goes. Her numbers are rising. I'm not a big fan of the NDP, but maybe people will say, I can't vote for the Liberals. They've been in power too long. I'll vote for the NDP. Well, that at least would be better than voting for Doug Ford, who has no policies and appeals to just base instincts. And more on this as the election continues. And I want to end this video by saying, yes, follow the campaign. And don't vote your base instincts, your base stupidities. You got to vote for people who have facts and policies. And Doug Ford
you kind of who do you vote for though? The Liberals or the NDP?
Well, or you can vote for the Greens or whatever. I'm just saying people should. What's the party that at least has a solid platform and solid policies At least the Liberals have a track record, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And yes. And
Which is a pretty weird track record
it's
when it
good
comes
and
to
bad,
Ontarians.
but there's
Like,
a
yeah,
track record.
right.
You know, Kathleen Wynne updated the sex ed program in Ontario, which is a very positive thing in our schools. She's attracted a lot of high-tech companies to Ontario.
She's willing to open up talks about the CTC.
Infrastructure. She's done a lot of good things on the social policy front. There are a lot of good things the Liberals did. They're not all bad. Yeah, there's corruption and all that, but they're not all bad. Anyways, I don't want
Bonnie Lysyk or whatever her name is. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm voting Liberal. I will fucking vote Liberal, but look, I don't know.
All I'm saying is they do have a lot of baggage, the Liberals, but by and large they've run a pretty good government, and Ontario's in pretty good shape. So we'll see what all happens. Okay, let's end this video because this was supposed to be a short video, and we've sort of
okay. And you're happy with it, right?
I'm happy with it. Those are my views at the time,
right?
And all I remember is just the facts. Okay, let's look at the facts rather than rhetoric and appealing to emotion and all that. Just look at the facts. That's all. People should just look at the facts when they vote, and that whether you look at Trump and all the stupidities and the irrationality, which does take place in Canada as well. You gotta just look at the facts. That's all. Just read a lot, learn a lot, and look at the facts. Okay, that's all. Just the facts, man. Just the facts.
Okay.